Good evening, folks, and welcome back to the Witty Whistle. What a year it has been in the League of Ireland. Drama, heartbreak, last-minute European sports, managers on the edge, and fans on emotional roller coaster. So tonight, we are breaking it all down. And before myself, Karl, and John dive into the topic, just do me a favor, actually, to hit that subscribe button if you haven't already, and drop a like so more League of Ireland fans can find this stream. And also worth to mention, given my mustache this month, I'm just supporting Movember, raising awareness for men's mental and physical health. So if you want to help the cause, the donation link will be in the comments in a few seconds. And every donation is welcome. Even a $5 can make a real difference. Now, let's get into the madness of the season that's just ended. And we are starting strong with the big hitters here. Let's start with Bows. We will do alphabetical order. So guys that are watching us, you can use the chat box and we will pick your comments along the way. I start with you, Karl. Bohemians, they spent a big chunk of the season near the top, but in the end, they finish fourth. Is that acceptable for the fans or it's too little?
I'd imagine they'd be delighted to be back in Europe. It's been a number of years now since they've been there. They did a great run in the Aviva during COVID, and I think that was the last time they played. So, like most clubs, it's really about getting into Europe for the next year because of the funds that it brings and the exposure that it brings the club and everything. So I would say Bows fans would be pretty happy overall. I think Alan Reynolds was getting pelters with a week or two to go in the season off the Bows fans, but he's after getting them into Europe, so I don't really think they can be too disappointed with him.
John, it seems that Bows, they grabbed Europe last minute. Do you think it was about fighting till the last minute? Was like a psychology kind of approach that saved them to not be fully disappointed?
Yeah, because and I think that was just that kind of fighting mentality. They ended the season strong, and I suppose even worked out obviously the cup final weekend, the Aviva. At the way the season started, and I remember the first game in Bows actually in the performance in the opening day of the season against Rovers in the Aviva. You kind of felt like they could have had the potential maybe to be one of the main kind of title challengers for Rovers. Potential wise that they have in the squad, but just like, and I suppose the story maybe with a lot of the other clubs, then maybe could have been potential challengers for the league. They had spells and they probably kind of struggled to find a bit of consistency with results. But I think definitely with the squad, and you look at like the talent to play like Dawson, Devoy, that the squad they have there, the European football probably is what the club is probably should be looking for, and maybe what they should be expecting. It'd be interesting, maybe like even in terms of already that they seem to be kind of there's kind of waves that are making big moves for next season in terms of the transfer market. So even this week now I see that Patrick Hickey from Galway United is linked for the move to Bows, and I'm sure they're going to be. It sounds like they're going to be. Alan Reynolds is going to be back, and they're going to be fairly busy in the off season, and they're probably going to need to because it was interesting to even how Alan and in terms of the fan base and stuff as well, like how Alan Reynolds was called, I don't care what the fan base kind of thing, it's only in the dressing room. So it kind of works out. But it'd be kind of interesting to see if Bows started slowly next year, what the reaction would be in terms of would the pressure be on straight away in terms of the heat in the oven that Reynolds faces. But I think you're looking at a couple of teams there. Like we'll probably talk about others in a minute, but I think Bows know that I suppose the ironic thing as well that they're kind of great Dublin rivals did them a bit of a favour on Sunday in the cup final, but they have the European football and that it's a pie box tick, but they'll be looking now hopefully to kick on and maybe position themselves to be maybe one of the main title chances for Rovers next year.
Let's move to Cork City. So Karl, you are surrounded by two massive biased fans, so we will rely on your objectivity here. I don't think myself and John can afford that. How would you rate Cork's season?
Poor. is probably the first word that comes to mind. Pretty poor. But when you kind of step back and look at it, how many did Seanie Maguire play 20 games this season, and then Rory Keaton probably only played 10, 12, maybe even not that many. Like if two of them are on the pitch for 36 games throughout the year and they're playing with each other week in, week out, potentially they're scoring 20, 30 goals together. So their season's very different if the two of those lads are on the pitch, but they weren't. And they finished bottom, and they finished bottom by a considerable margin. So I'd say they're very, very disappointed. I think that's 3 relegations in 6 years, which isn't good enough, I suppose, for a team like Cork. We're in a weird position now where I think all the teams in the Premier Division are really, really strong, and it's going to be a strong club that gets relegated. It used to be a thing in the League of Ireland where there would be a clear weak team or a clear weak club. I don't think that's the case anymore. So unlucky for Cork that they're in that league now where everyone is strong and all the clubs are strong, not just the teams themselves. But you'd have to be really disappointed getting relegated. Great for them to get to a cup final. It's a brilliant day out. I've been lucky and unlucky to be at loads of cup finals of Pats over the years. We lost loads that I went to initially, and now we just seem to only win cup finals when we get there. Regardless, it's a great day out, and I'm sure everyone that came up and was able to support Cork on the day really, really enjoyed it. But overall, if you're getting relegated for a team like Cork, potentially one of the biggest clubs in the country, if not the biggest club, poor season from them overall, and the league campaign especially.
John, you were also at Aviva, like myself. Did you ever feel that Cork could actually win the game?
Yeah, I was actually surprised. Like, to be honest with you, it probably surpassed my expectations, particularly in the first half. Just how maybe it was like maybe it might just been the fact that Rovers were maybe just kind of slow to get going. Maybe it's because it's like they were kind of over relying on Graham Buck. I felt in the first half in time to time, but I'd say they would have been definitely for the first 35-40 minutes. John Nash definitely, I think, would have been the happier of the two managers the way it was going. That Rovers weren't really causing. They had the most of possession, but Conor Brennan, the City goal, probably didn't have an awful lot to do in terms of saves. But you could say City probably had the clearer chances even in the first half in terms of like Dabber Crowley forced McGinty to save. Seanie Maguire had a shot as well, And then I felt the pressure was kind of building a small bit in terms of Rovers. They were kind of getting a bit on top, and then unfortunately the sending off just kind of accelerated the process even more. And then when it was 11 versus 10, it just felt like even if you felt it in the stadium, it kind of felt like it was inevitable, really, from a Cork perspective. What was going to happen? It was only a matter of when Rovers were going to score, and that's only what happened, But like, and even if maybe the show fundamentally, whether they win it or whether they lost the cup, maybe it might have covered the cracks of it, maybe if they had won it in one sense. But I think there's fundamentally, I think there's a lot, in terms of the structures of the club. Like you see, even the Aviva, like the potential for Cork City, the crowd they bring up, and then down here in Cork, the potential that Cork City have to be probably one of the biggest clubs in the country, if not the biggest. Like if you're looking at what Shamrock Rovers are doing at the moment in terms of the fan base, the crowd, and winning leagues, trophies, World Cups, playing in group stage European football. But I think the potential is there for Cork City. But then if you look at the two clubs, and there's other clubs as well. Like I think just in terms of the footballing wise and the structure wise, the Cork City are a good bit probably. They have a good bit to go to kind of get back up to that level. Obviously, they have to get promoted first now for the first division. But let's say the next time in the Premier Division, they have a good bit to go to get back to where the club could be. And the problem is now is like you're looking at Rover and then the Shelbourne as well, and obviously with the European money like Derry and Bohemians next year, that and the way the Premier Division is at the moment, like you're afraid the Cork City could be falling further and further behind where they could be, because these clubs like look at Shamrock Rovers, for example, they don't look like they're going to be going away from the top end of the table anytime soon. And it was just obviously it was a good to get to the cup final and look at aspects of the performance. You felt the way the City played at times in the final, and also in the semi-final against Pats. Like if they had played at that level more consistently over the whole season, like you kind of think like maybe they might have been okay. Like, and, there was a lot of disruption, and I think it was even highlighted mid-season or at the start of the season. Maybe they were kind of, in hindsight, maybe it was probably over reliant on Karl O'Sullivan, Rory Keating, Sean Maguire, Jake Steele, and then in Bing as well. We see how well he's done as well since he's gone to Shells. There's probably there's things that maybe need to be ironed out, and hopefully they will be kind of ironed out in the coming years. Like, I think it was kind of a point, I suppose, even Tim Clancy, for example, he's been actually quite vocal, even on the likes of Off the Ball, and in the last couple of weeks and months as well, to say how, saying things like he was in, there was a situation how he was kind of living with players, and even how there was no assistant manager for a couple of weeks when Jamie Hamill went back to Scotland. And in terms of opposition, even he was even referencing how there was one time, like, I think he drove up to Derry himself to watch Derry versus Bows, maybe just do a bit of opposition analysis himself, and then driving back down, he didn't get down to Cork till about 4 o'clock in the morning, and then they were in training the following morning at 9 o'clock. So I suppose it took its toll next into midnight, and then it's probably not ideal for Jornash and Moyler coming in, trying to, I suppose, they're starting on the back foot in such a way. So, but you could maybe, and there was glimpses of it, like maybe slight improvement, as you saw with the semi-final and bits of the final. But no, it's going to be a big off season now, and it'll be interesting to see kind of what backing that Jornash gets, because because there's going to be a couple of goings. Alex Nolan looks like he's going to be going to Sligo. Evan McLaughlin looks like he's going to be leaving, and there's obviously the club announced as well. Freddie Anderson, Kamara, and Kit Nelson are going back to their clubs in England. So it'll be a big off season, and it'll be interesting to see kind of how John Nash is back, because it looked like Nash was very close to getting the job before Tim Clancy came in as well. So it'll be a big off season, and it'll be interesting to see kind of what kind of backing he gets now, and maybe what he does in the off season in terms of putting his own kind of vision and stamp on the club.
Right. So next on the list is Derry City. I think we can all agree that they had a brilliant year. None of us expected Derry to finish second. So what did we miss? Where was the talent? Was there any specific player or players? Was it the coach's merits? Was it outside of the pitch, Karl?
Well, Michael Duffy had an incredible year. Loads of goals, loads of assists. Obviously, Tiernan Lynch came in at the start of the year as their new manager, and probably had a bit of a shaky start, and there was a lot of turnover. He really kind of changed a lot of personnel, and it took them a couple of weeks to get going, and they ended up finishing 3 points off Rovers. Like, a couple of results go the other way. 2 results go the other way for them, and they're league champions, with them obviously having such a disappointing end of last year, where it looked like the league title was theirs to win, and they couldn't win a game, and no one seemed to want to win any games at the end of last season except for Pats. But yeah, I think they'd be very optimistic going into next season. I think they have a much more settled team in the second half of the year. So they'll be really, really happy. And I think we haven't seen the best of the likes of Gavin White and Liam Boyce, and probably a couple of other more experienced players that Tiernan brought in this year. Tiernan Lynch obviously did brilliantly with Larne last season, got them into the conference league phase for the first time. I think it was the first time a Northern Irish team had ever gotten into the European group stages. So he's obviously quite an accomplished manager, and he's had his first year at Derry. He's improved them on last year, and they've just gotten better and better throughout the season. So it'll be interesting to see who they'll bring in, how they strengthen. There's no lack of money up in Derry. Like, they're owned by a billionaire, so there's money there for them to spend, and they've put that extra stand in now behind the goal, which has really increased the capacity of their ground, and that's going to bring more revenue for them as well. So Derry are a club on the up at the moment. I would imagine, if I was to pick now, I'd imagine they'd be the closest club to Rovers next year, but I guess we'll see what the off-season brings for all the clubs.
John, if the season were a bit longer, say another couple of weeks or even a month, can you imagine that Derry would have lifted the trophy and not Shamrock Rovers?
I think quite possibly the way the season was going, and especially the way the season kind of ended from a Derry perspective. like as Karl was saying, if you look kind of like in terms of the squad that they have as well, and like Michael Duffy, who you could say probably potentially was it 12 goals and 11 assists. I think he got. You could arguably say that he was probably one of the players of the season across the whole league, really, and based on his form and the consistency. But they were probably just another, and it was probably the slow start. Probably, if you're looking back, it probably cost Derry in that sense. They were probably playing catch up, and if the season was maybe a couple of weeks longer, they could potentially have overtaken Rovers. You don't know, because like Joe Rovers are juggling a lot of balls at the moment, as we know, between obviously with the cup final and league game, and then obviously with the European games as well. There's a lot. They're taking the toll there, but I think Derry, they'll have European football now next year, and so you kind of think as well they're one of the clubs potentially, if you're looking to kind of kick on. And I think by all accounts, I think Rob Slevin as well. I think one sign off the top of me that could be good up there to Derry, and that seems to be the word we out. But you think that he definitely do in terms of trying to kick on next year and be, if you're looking for one of those teams that could potentially challenge for the title, or challenge Shamrock Rovers, Derry could be definitely, I think, the team that has that kind of the infrastructure football wise, and then the investment to kind of to strengthen again. And you'd imagine they will keep the bulk of that squad there as well for next year, so they'd be open to invest and have a right go at challenging for the league and for the cup as well next year.
Right, let's move to Drogheda. Drogheda, they fell short in the last few weeks. What was the issue, in your opinion, Karl? Was it consistency or something deeper?
I think it's the first year gone full time in a league where all the teams are full time. So I think it's a big adjustment for them to all make, and for the manager as well. They probably lacked a goal scorer, and to be honest with you, all 10 teams probably lacked a goal scorer this year. Like outside of Amand and Melia, there wasn't really a striker that was in massive form this year. So if Drogheda had a striker that got them 12, 13, 14 goals, like they'd probably be in Europe again this year. I think Conor Keeley finished top scorer with 7 goals. He was absolutely colossal this year for them at the back and up front. He had a pretty decent year at Pats last year, and probably just didn't suit the style of play for Stephen Kenny, so he went back to Drogheda, and it's worked wonders for him. He's been brilliant. I wouldn't be surprised if most of the teams in the league were looking to sign him for how good he was. I'm not sure what his contract situation is like at Drogheda, but it's probably a goal scorer. The James Douglas Taylor went to Bows halfway through the year from Drogheda. I think he was only on loan at Drogheda, so Bows nipped in and signed him on a permanent one. So if they keep him, maybe they finish ahead of Bows. Maybe they get those extra few points. It was so tight in the end, but goals is normally where teams lack.
John, I think there are a couple of teams and fans who are particularly frustrated. We are one of us for sure. I think Karl are in the same situation with Pats, and Drogheda are in the similar shoes because they missed Europe due to some strange regulations that were announced in summer, and this time they missed Europe in the pitch. How can they handle that going forward?
It's an interesting, because they probably, if you're looking, it's kind of, if I look at it, it's fascinating. With Drogheda, they probably still how they probably exceeded expectations once again this year in terms of like. So I'd say before ball was kicked again, a lot of people might have had them to be down, maybe in danger of the relegation playoff or even automatic relegation. So like it was a case like, but I suppose it's kind of like again, and Kevin Doherty has done a terrific job there. Really, all things considered, a Drogheda over the last couple of years. But like you kind of felt as well, given the way the season, especially because they remember they started the season well. I think they were top for a bit in the early stages of the season as well for a while. Like so. Even though like they probably exceeded expectations in one sense, then if you were saying, as you were saying there, like on the other sense, then there's a sense that they could have done more, and the fact that I think there definitely was probably an opportunity because and maybe a lack of consistency with the other team. Like Drogheda had that kind of potential to probably they could have kicked on, and they could have got a European spot. Like they were kind of right in the. It was kind of in their grasp, probably right up until the closing stages of the season. And I don't know. It could have been as Karl was alluding to as well. Maybe the lack of maybe in terms of a number 9 or something as it were, or someone at 15, 20, 25 goals a season, man, could have been just the missing link, because overall, Drogheda, if you watch them, the one thing they seem always very well structured and very. So like Connor Keeley, for example, Dennison, and others as well. They seem very well, especially whose position, very well organised, and that was probably maybe that missing link just to go that extra step forward. Just, do you know what I mean? Like even like Douglas James Taylor going to Bowes as well. Like, I think he was if he was there, that could have got them over the line. That his goals brought to Drogheda, and the goals he brought at Drogheda. So it's kind of one thing, like, they'd be like, definitely you think maybe where will Drogheda go in terms of their seed, because and have they overachieved? It'd be interesting to see kind of next year, can they kind of keep up around that part of the table, because you kind of feel like it's going to be, can they keep fight, because there's going to be kind of, you feel kind of investment in some other teams that are going to be up around that end of the table. So it'd be interesting to see if Drogheda can keep up and kind of definitely keeping in around the European positions,
Next one is Galway United. So at the start, not only in this podcast, but I gathered that from social media. Many people believed in Galway as the underdogs of the League of Ireland, but in the end, they were not. Should fans be simply happy to stay up, or should they have different ambitions next year, Karl?
I think it was a very tough year for Galway. Obviously, with Ollie being very sick for a part of it and then passing away halfway through the season, I think that would have taken its toll on a lot of the players, and to have someone there that would have been probably in an hour, 2 hours before you in training every day, and he'd be the first person you'd probably see coming in. So I'd say that was a big adjustment for the Galway players. And again, there's 10 this year. There was 10 really strong clubs and 9 probably really good teams, and I think Galway probably beat most teams this season, I would imagine, and took points off everyone, I would imagine. So I think they'd be pretty disappointed overall, finishing so close to the relegation, with them being so solid over the last couple of years and so difficult to play against. But and you go back to a goal scorer all the time. But if they keep Moses Dyer halfway through the season, who scored 10 goals in 18, 19 games for them, if he doubles that and gets us 20 goals in his 36 games, then they're probably in Europe again. Like they'd be much closer to it anyway. But he was such a big loss, and John was saying there that looks like Patrick Hickey's on the way to Bowes. I hope he stops at Inchi Core and signs something there instead. But they'll probably be weaker next year. I think it seems like a lot of their players are being linked with moves away. I think, again, John was saying Rob Slevin being linked with Derry and Patrick Hickey linked with Bowes. It's 2 of their most important players straight away. And they have a lot of older players as well who aren't going to be better for them next year. They'll bring an experienced head to the team. But they'll be disappointed, but they're probably going to be closer to the relegation next year.
John, I understand that Irish football is very much about physicality, but it seems to me that Galway, the only thing that they had to present was physicality. They were missing other elements that are crucial, let's say, when you want to win the game the last few minutes. Is it something that they need to consider going forward, or they can still concentrate on physicality to perform?
And it's definitely, because it's probably like in terms of the height, they had that kind of style, and it goes back to as well how big, like the Caulfield, Ollie Horgan, the dynamic as well, was how big of a play did they have on the style that had them. Because even last year as well, they were kind of right up around the European places, kind of right into the closing stage of the season, But it's going to be, again, like in terms of to answer, I suppose, Vitor, to answer your question, it's probably going to be something that it's going to be interesting to see with Galway overall. Like I sense in terms of the off season, in terms of where do they go, what kind of style of play do they have. in terms of next year, you know, for Moses Dyer, in the goals he brought, like who's going to can they get someone like or so that can get the goals that he got, because that midway through the season that would have been a big challenge. I'd imagine having even at the end of the season, I think only 4 or 5 players scored more goals than Moses Dyer in the league. So like, you know, what kind of style of like, and I think that John Caulfield's side as well. Like, I think I expect they're going to play a similar enough next year. You always get we probably know it yourself, Vítor, from watching maybe John Caulfield's Cork City teams. Like you know you're going to get a team that's certainly not lacking in terms of work rate and intensity. You know, and there was kind of elements of like, you know, like even some of the cup games. They're even like the quarter final against Pats. You could see there were even like Dave Hurley's he's a good technical player for them as well. But I think that how much of it was just pure it was a kind of pure adrenaline, and just maybe, you know, it's probably something like how big a loss Ali Horgan, going back to the Ali Horgan factor again, how that having that kind of a loss midway through the season as well, it must have been like a devastating blow kind of for them, and it's probably only something in the off season that they're going to be able to kind of properly come to terms with maybe what happened there as well, because you're kind of just really just going on in and just they could have been running on empty maybe for a lot of the season, so they probably the off season might be just a good chance for them all to refresh and for Galway to go again. And like, you know, I definitely think looking at Galway again, that obviously they just avoided it this year. So like you kind of feel that if you were to offer Galway fans a place next year now, they probably, the vast majority of them would take that. I would sense.
Okay, now we move to the champions of the League of Ireland, Shamrock Rovers. They had a pretty shaky finish, Karl. Are Rovers truly that solid?
Yeah, I think they're brilliant. I hate saying that, but they're a brilliant team, and I think it's as good. It's obviously shaky start to the season. They only won the league by 3 points in the end, but what a season they've had. They've done a double, and they've gotten into the Conference League group stages. A League of Ireland treble, it's probably the closest you can get in the League of Ireland now with no League Cup anymore. But yeah, I think they're an incredible team. They've so many good players, and in every position. They've essentially 2 players for every position. Like I think even in the game in Athens there last week, I think they're starting back 4 or back 5 played the game, but the rest of the players are kind of all squad players and on the fringe. So it just shows the strength and depth that they have, and it's obviously worrying when they're 2 years back to back getting into the Conference League group stages. It brings such huge funds to them, and they can essentially go out now in the off season and have to pick up players in the league, and they're in a point now where they can probably buy any player off the league. Like previous years, the last game of the season, there'd be 200 players out of contract, and then it would be a scramble to try and sign these 200 players. It's probably 20, 30, 40 players that are out of contract at the end of the season now. And they're probably not the most desirable players that people want people to tie down the best players. But Rovers can go out and go to Drogheda or Sligo or wherever and say, well, we want to buy Anthony Elding, or we want to buy Conor Keeley off you. What do you say to that? Like, those players are going to want to go there. They're going to want to win silverware. They're going to want to play in Europe. So it's a tough position for all the other clubs in the league now. But it's credit to Rovers. Like they've been brilliant the last couple of years. 5 titles out of 6. So only their first FAI Cup in a couple of years, and it's been a long time since they've won since. But this is the crown and jewel in Bradley's time at Rovers. I don't know what else he could do in the domestic game. Like, he's been absolutely incredible. He's up there with the Stephen Kennys and the Brian Kerrs and the Pat Fenlons of the best League of Ireland managers ever now. So Rovers are good, and unfortunately I think they're just going to get better.
Yeah, you touched a point that I want to raise here with John. So with domestic dominance clear and settled, is Europe the next step for Shamrock Rovers?
Yeah, you think so? That's for sure. And like, even I think it was even something I think Stephen Bradley alluded to actually in his kind of comments and his press conference and interviews after the game on Sunday, in terms of where Rovers go, that we need to be ambitious. Like, the Conference League, we should be looking to try to get into the group stages even of the Europa League and kick on, and from there. And then the way they're going is it's not even just making the group stages now. Like even last year, obviously they were unlucky to lose in the knockout stages and penalties to Molde from Norway. But I think that's something that's and it's a probably testament to where Stephen Bradley has got the club. That's the ambitions that the club have, and that's the direction they're going in. That they're going to Europe thinking every year, look, we have a good opportunity to get into a knockout stages of a European competition, like the Conference League, and that's the big advantage they do have from winning the league. Like even next year, like basically, if you go through one round, if they win their first round in the Champions League qualifying, that they're basically guaranteed a playoff for the Europa Conference League group stages straight away. So and then I think that shows you in terms of the European side of things how big being the champions is. But I suppose the credit to, and that's the way, maybe it was such a satisfying, another big achievement for them this year in terms of the European front, was the way that they did it. Going through I suppose how and when you look at, especially at the moment, how difficult it is to kind of navigate all those qualifying rounds to get to the group stages, and especially in the last up to be like a Santa Clara, like a side who finished with in the top half of the Portuguese league last year, but to manage the game and to get through that was a big credit to them, and that it doesn't look like they're going to go anywhere anytime soon. Certainly domestically. And I think they've set the standard, and it's up to the other teams to kind of to get up to the bar that they've raised, and I suppose that all you can say that's the thing, the standard setters, and I suppose it probably hurts maybe for people from Cork to say, but when you're looking even at the Rovers team last week and you're seeing two Cork Josh Honahan and Matt Healy in the Rovers team, but so I suppose at the moment you can't blame fellas like that to be good, because realistically at the moment, if you want to be if you want to play at the highest level and win trophies and play European football, but I suppose if you're a player from Cork, for the foreseeable future, you're not going to be able to do that at Cork City. So I think it just shows that that's the pull and the draw that Rovers have. They can be any player, like as Karl was saying, if they want to go for an O'Neill or anyone, anyone that kind of even Karl O'Sullivan maybe from a Cork perspective, if they come calling, though, it's hard to turn it down in the football side, and the structure. They've been the best team for the last, certainly this decade, and it's a credit to, I suppose, even Stephen Bradley. You have to say kind of fair play to what he's done and what he's built there. It wasn't too long ago. There was banners kind of in the early stages of his tenure calling for him to leave and Bradley out. But look what he's done since, and look, I suppose you have to say as well, though it is a fantastic achievement for what he's done there, and I suppose considering as well how difficult, when you the circumstances, how difficult things have been for him, especially away from football, with I suppose his son Josh and his difficulty, I suppose, and battles with cancer in the last couple of years. So I think ultimately, winning the double, and then obviously getting that news as well about Josh being cancer free as well. Though it's probably as good a year, I'd say, as Stephen Bradley's had in his entire footballing life. You think definitely playing and managing, but definitely they're the standard setters, and now it's up to everyone else to try to catch them and get up to their level.
Right, let's stay in Dublin and move to Tolka Park and discuss Shelbourne. I think there were two Shelbournes this season. One that was underperforming in the first few months, and there was an amazing Shelbourne over the last maybe 5-6 months, perhaps since Joe O'Brien take over. But overall, can we say that Shells underperformed, given that they were the champions, Karl?
I think the league table probably fairly reflects where all the teams are at, to be totally honest with you. Now you're definitely right in terms of there was two sides of the Shelbourne coin this year, a poor one at the start and then a much better one in the second half of the season. They'll obviously be absolutely buzzing being in the Conference League. It's huge. It's probably bigger than winning a cup now, and maybe for fans, I think getting those away days and obviously the money that comes into it as well. Like I think it's probably one of the biggest things you can do in the league, like outside probably winning the league. So I think overall they'll be pretty happy with how the season has ended for them. But I think a lot of people were worried when Duffer left that things were not going to go well and that things were going to get worse before they got better, and they got better very quickly under Joey O'Brien. So he deserves a lot of credit. It's his first main job. I think I'm not sure if he was a coach at Rovers first team before he went to Shelbourne. He might have been in the academy. I'm not entirely sure. So he's had 3 years under Duffer, and then he's gotten the job himself, and he's done amazingly well. Like. I think in one game in Richmond in the cup, we beat them 1-0. I think in every other game, Shells have been absolutely brilliant this year, and it's a credit to Joey O'Brien. And but they'll have a big off season as well now. They have Europe again next year. They've the money from the Conference League this year, so they can go out and spend and bring players from abroad or have probably the next pick of the players in the league. So. It's going to be a good time to be a Shelbourne person, which it really, really pains me to say that.
John, can Shells leverage the Conference League benefits to challenge Shamrock Rovers next year?
I would think so. You know, I think they're definitely probably one of the sides again who probably have that, and I think they've shown them maybe in the game, even the recent game that they played against Rovers as well. They have that notes and that they have that potential. That Joey O'Brien as well has them very well coached, and they seem to have a good springboard that they could push on and properly challenge, especially having this kind of Conference League group stage money as well. That they have that potential to kick on, and it'll be interesting to see kind of what they do in the off season as well. Though I wouldn't be too surprised maybe if someone like a Jack Byrne, for example, ends up at maybe somewhere like one of the Dublin clubs, or even definitely somewhere like Shells could be a potential destination. And if they were to get someone, whoever gets someone like Jack Byrne, I think as well in terms of talent, that arguably one of the best talents in the league. Still, you could argue like that'd be interesting. But for Shells, I think definitely Joey O'Brien has definitely shown, and I think he's steady this like, and maybe that's maybe in terms of when Damien Duff left as well, he probably felt that the team was in fairly capable hands with Joe, because they seem to be like a very, very close relationship there. So it kind of felt like they might have been just fine with Joey O'Brien. And so in fairness, you could just see like you get, and the initial sense maybe that the wheels could come off the fact how that was probably the initial sense at the time when Duff left the club. But in fairness, though, the transition has been kind of fairly seamless in that sense. So. Like Joey O'Brien has gone in and he's kind of kept Shells fairly competitive, and then ultimately getting into the group stages of the Conference League, and obviously they'll have the European football next year again as well, and like it'll be an exciting, I suppose, for Shell, if you're a Shell supporter, to think that you'll be going in maybe thinking that you'd be kind of hopeful that you could be one of those main teams, and definitely with what O'Brien has done so far, and with maybe the potential budget that they have, if you're looking maybe playing wise and squad wise for next year, they could potentially definitely be one of those sides that could challenge Rovers as well,
Okay, let's talk Pats now. So I'm very keen to hear from you, Karl. I know it wasn't the season you and the fans were expecting. Was there any warning signs at some point that told you that things were not going Pats' way?
Probably when they were playing football on the pitch most weeks. No, look, I think at the end of last year we were maybe, and Stephen Kenny actually said this after the last game of the season, that we were probably lulled into a false sense of security in terms of we won the last 11 games, we'd beaten every team in the country, and we were the form team, and we were on an absolute roll. And Jake Mulroney and Zach Ebezebi were tearing up the league. Like, they were unplayable for the second half of last year, and they were hardly on the pitch this year. I think Jake played 20 games. Zach probably played 15, 16, 17 league games. So they were two huge losses throughout the year. We never start a season well. I can't remember the last time Pats started a season and they got 5 or 6 wins in the first 10 games. We just never seem to have good starts, and that's a worry for next year, because like we should be finishing in Europe with the squad that we have, with the money that's being spent, with the manager that we have, with everything that's gone into the Stephen Kenny project over the last 18 months. We should be much closer to the league title. Now 3-4 games go the other way from you, and you're only a couple of points off Rovers. So it's been a very disappointing year overall. I think everyone involved in St. Patrick's Athletic, fans, players, management, ownership, everyone is going to be really, really disappointed with how the season went. But there is a really talented group of players there, and you could bring in 1 or 2 that sinks everything into place. It's so easy to go one way, but it's so easy to go the other way as well. So I think in the off season they're going to have to bring in 2 or 3 really, really good quality players that are going to go straight into the team and improve us. But this year is I would nearly go as far as saying it's been a disaster, because you need to finish in Europe. You need that money coming in every year. Mason Mealy is going to be a massive, massive loss. Conor Cartian didn't really get too much of a look in at the start of the season, and played pretty well anytime he came on in the second half of the season. Aidan Keena was unplayable in the first 6 games of the year, and then he broke his foot, and then he's kind of been anonymous. He's kind of been in and out with injuries. So you look at Keena, Ebezebi and Jake Mulroney, if they're fit for 36 games, it's a completely different season for Pats. But unfortunately they weren't on the pitch for 36 games. So we finished 5th, where we lost a very disappointing semi-final in the Cup away to Cork. Cork were brilliant on the night and absolutely deserved it. But yeah, no, pretty poor year for Pat. So there's a lot of things that need to be looked at. But again, you bring in 2 or 3 players that are good, or that really gel, and you get those players who are injured throughout the year back on the pitch, and it's a completely different outlook at the club. So I'm forever the optimist. So I'm very hopeful for 2026. Well, let's see how we get on in the off season.
In your estimation, John, where were the issues? Squad, management, balance, or a bit of everything?
Like it's going to affect from looking from what I've seen the Pats this year. It's just probably just similar. It's just the consistency, probably just being. They had the potential, they think, to be, and even in the off season, they were looking maybe in terms of the pre-season predictions. A lot of people seem to have Pats up, maybe either winning or being one of the main title challengers, or one of the Shamrock Rovers, and like so and to go from that maybe and then not having European football next year. You think it'll be overall, like you'll be hoping to kind of kick on again next year for sure. Like, but I think it's just the consistent, and maybe in terms of like grinding results out, and it was kind of like maybe the night in Turners is it, I don't know, was it a mentality thing when that night in Turners crossed, and that's why you think in terms of the missed opportunity, definitely in terms of what that could have offered the cup and maybe European or moving to Europe for sure as well. Like that I kind of felt watching a couple of times the Pats, but definitely I suppose the night in Turner's cross, it kind of felt like, was it kind of a case of we only have to turn up and win this game kind of a thing. And then when Cork brought the intensity to the game and they were kind of in their face, the way it went, like there was no kind of, I felt like plan B. Maybe look at Pats, or they were kind of half stunned maybe, or they didn't know how to react to what Cork were bringing, what Cork City were bringing to the game that night. So I don't know, is it the mentality thing, or is it like definitely the talent you think the Pats is there, and if they keep the bulk of what they have, and if they can add in a few positions, you think that they could definitely be a team that could challenge for the title. But it'll be interesting to see, in terms of what Stephen Kenny does in the off season, or is there is there players that need to be? Does he feel need to be moved on, or what? Like it'd be interesting in that sense to see is there guys that maybe in terms of the dressing room and the mentality inside there that there's guys that it might be better to part ways, or it'd be an interesting off season for sure. And I think definitely and definitely with Kenny going to Pats as well, especially like the height, the port, and the appointment that he has there. I think definitely maybe my sense of with the owners and with the Pat supporters like Karl, I think they have the expectation is I think for Pats to be challenging for silverware and to kind of be in Europe regularly. So that you think there has to be a minimum next year for sure. Certainly getting back into Europe at first case.
Right. Sligo Rovers, similar to Shelbourne, there was one Sligo Rovers at the start, and for sure a second Sligo Rovers in the final run. What was the transformation that occurred within the team, in your opinion, Karl, for them to finish in this superb form?
I think John Russell made some really good signings. I think in the middle of the season, he brought in Patrick McLean. I think he was at Glentoran, and he was really, really solid for them. I think that was probably the real big training point. Maybe he told Owen Elding halfway through the season, just go out and express yourself and do what you want, because he was absolutely electric throughout the year. But kind of Sligo just been on the decline now for the last couple of years. They've finished with less and less points for the last 3 or 4 seasons now. So it's difficult, and they're a fan-run club, and there's so many teams now with huge backing financially in the club. Like there's millionaires that own most clubs now, outside of Bows and Sligo themselves. So it's difficult to compete, and obviously Sligo is a small town. It's up in the west of Ireland, so it's not as desirable for players to live in, rather than kind of Dublin, Cork, and even Derry. So it's a difficult one for them. But I definitely, the turning point of the season was halfway through, and Patrick McLean came in, and he was really, really, really good. So, and then Owen Elding, his form was just really, really consistent throughout the year. That those two players are probably the difference to them. In terms of staying up or going into a relegation playoff. So they'll be disappointed, but again, there's 10 really strong teams in the league now, so it's not easy to finish high up anymore.
John, I recall the time that Sligo played in Turner's Cross, and we all thought that this would turn out as something positive for us, and we had good reasons to think that way because we were winning. But I think Sligo's mentality was key, and with that same mindset, they managed to finish the season beating Rovers in Tallaght when they were celebrating the title. So, how would you put together the fact they are that strong when it comes to their head?
So ultimately, I think it goes back to maybe what the vision that's being implemented there, and I suppose the John Russell, I think the job that he's done there for sure as well. I suppose like he all things considered, you have to think as well. Like Rovers probably, I think definitely before Bob was kicked, and I suppose they're still one of the only kind of fully fan-run clubs, I think, from my understanding. But they definitely would have been budget-wise, definitely I think by 9th and the 10th in terms of the ranking the Premier League teams before the Bob was kicked. And I think that mentality that it comes back to John Russell, who's probably definitely maybe in the longer term, even though he was already whole. And I think though it's been rubbish, but though Waterford, apparently he was being linked with the Waterford job. So it stages at the end of last week. You kind of think longer term in terms of the job that he's done there. That definitely in the longer, medium to longer term, you feel Rovers could do fairly well to hang on to John Russell, and if a job becomes available, certainly at maybe one of the Dublin teams, for example, that he could be someone that could be kind of sounded out, or maybe someone that could be identified for a job at one of those kind of clubs, or maybe a club that's in the top 4, 5, 6 in the league at the moment. Because So he has them very competitive, and you say, Vítor, it's the mentality that he's brought to the club, and it's something with the team as well. You feel that they weren't afraid to, especially in the second half of the season, to grind it out and not throw the towel in. And like it could have been easy to do that when they were 2-0 down the Turner's Cross, and they came back to win 3-2. And that was one of the big turning points of the season in terms of the relegation battle. And even personally, I felt that night that even from a Cork City perspective, even though they kind of closed the gap a small, but that did feel like a hammer blow psychologically. And looking back at it, that was probably one of the nights when I kind of felt the writing was nearly on the wall in terms of Cork City, in terms of relegation. Unfortunately, from a Cork City perspective, but Rovers, they really do. They're kind of a well-run club, and they're a well-organised club, and it's certainly from watching them a number of times this season, they're not afraid to kind of go toe to toe with the Premier Division sides, and they've consolidated, and they'll be hoping to do likewise next season again for sure.
Right, let's finish the Premier Division analysis with Waterford. So Waterford, they had 2 playoff wins in 3 years. Why do the Waterford lads excel in big moments, Karl?
They've a couple of really experienced players. They've a much better squad than probably anyone in the first division. So that was enough for them on the night against Bray. Bray started the game really, really well, and obviously went 1-0 up. But the likes of Amond and even like the likes of Tommy Lonergan, who would be quite a young player, but he's played in a cup final for Pats, and he's been in and around first team clubs in the League of Ireland, and then obviously his year at Fleetwood as well for the last 4 or 5 years. So the experience is probably enough. Obviously, Darragh Leahy, Ryan Burke at the back for them as well, 2 really, really good players. So they probably they had enough to beat anyone in a playoff, I think. But they'll be disappointed. Like they had the top scorer in the league this year. It's rare that a top scorer is playing for one of the teams that are fighting a relegation battle. So like they have to bring in a new manager now, and I think John was alluding there that John Russell was linked with it. I think it'd be a bit of a sideways move for John Russell. Now maybe there's money involved, and that makes it a bit more desirable. But John Russell's a kind of a stalwart of Sligo Rovers. He's played 200 games for the club, and he's been the manager for 2.5, 3 seasons now. So I'd imagine he'll stay put until a bigger job, like as John was saying, a job in Dublin or a Derry City job or a Drogheda United job comes up, something along those lines. But I think all those managers are fairly well settled. So if I was advising John Russell, I'd be telling him to stay still. Waterford has been a fairly hostile, might not be the right word, but they've gone through a lot of managers over the last couple of years, and they're quick to change things, which can be good, but you also need to give managers time and let them find out what they have in terms of their playing staff and bringing people in and getting a style of play and stuff like that. But I would imagine Waterford are going to be close to the bottom again next year. Like Amond will score goals again for them. He'll have another year on the body clock, which is never good at kind of 35, 36. Tommy Lonergan, really, really good player, but they're very dependent on that link with Fleetwood. And how long do Fleetwood persist with it? Like, I wonder what Fleetwood are actually really getting out of it, to be totally honest with you. Like, they can send 3 players on loan there every season, but they could do that with a non-league team in England easily. But I would say Waterford are happy to be in Premier Division next year, but they'd be hopeful to be a little bit further up the table, but they're probably going to be thereabouts again.
John, what's your assessment of Waterford season, and what can they expect going forward?
I suppose first things first. It'd be interesting in terms of who, I suppose, getting a first team manager, a permanent appointment in. And just they need to get maybe kind of once that's kind of finalised sooner rather than later. Build a structure and try to kick on, and because the potential of Waterford is like, if you look at it, Cork City, like Waterford, they seem to get good crowds down there as well. And if Waterford is going well, and the potential down in Waterford with football, there's a high ceiling there in terms of what they could achieve, and how do they achieve it now, or how they get there, will be an interesting story. It'll be interesting. It's fascinating if you look at Matt Lawler coming in on an interim basis from Fleetwood, obviously managing winning the playoff game last week. But like his record over his interim spells at Waterford is pretty impressive, really, for sure. If you look at the amount of games that he's won in the time that's there. But that doesn't seem. You think, imagine what he could potentially do if he was there over a longer term basis. But like the sense is, even from talking to Matt, or even from listening to him talking after the playoff game last week, it's not. He doesn't seem interested in I suppose maybe in terms of his family and just maybe more job security, maybe what in his current job in terms of maybe day to day at Fleetwood. So I think definitely probably him getting it on a more permanent basis seems to be not another. Definitely, you think the potential is there for them to, like I said, there's a high ceiling there. So, like in Portugal, like they have arguably even he's like a fine wine, but like he's still probably one of the best goal scorers and finishers in the League of Ireland at the moment as well. You kind of think, I'm not exactly sure how they do it, but it for Waterford, they've not to this extent the Cork City have been, but so they've been in that kind of playoff. I think it might be 4 the last 5 years, or it's something like that. They've been in that kind of relegation playoff game quite a significant amount of times in the last number of years. So that's something they'll want to put to bed, and they'll want to move on. So it'll be very interesting off season at Waterford for sure. And I suppose first of all just to see who they get in as a permanent manager, and then see from there. I mean, in terms of how the squad shapes up for next season, then
Right. So before we talk about the Ireland game, lads, just a personal moment here. I would like to ask you, what was your League of Ireland moment of the season? Okay, so it doesn't. I just want you to come out with some moment, some feeling, some story, some incident that you wanna highlight. Anything you have in mind, Karl?
There's not a particular moment that's kind of jumping out, but Chris Forrester scored a brilliant free kick. I can't even actually remember who it was against now. It's actually totally gone out of my head. But Chris Forrester scored a brilliant free kick, and I love Chris Forrester, so that's my moment of the season. In a goal against an unnamed team, but it was a free kick and it was very good. So that's what I have for you.
Very good. Do you guys know Neil Fenn? I'm sure you know.
Sorry, say that again?
Do you guys know Neil Fenn, the former
Neil
Cork
Fenn,
City manager? Yeah. So this is my moment. So I didn't know. I was seated next to him on Sunday, and I didn't know who was he. So I was chatting away like he was another lad, and I just got to know that I was seated next to Neil Fenn when I got to the pub after the game, and I was chatting with my friend. So and I was just talking to him like he was. I mean, he is, of course, we are all human beings here, but I didn't know that I was seated next to someone who played for Ireland, who played for Spurs, who was Cork City manager, but I had no idea. And I just handshake with him saying, "Have a good evening, nice to meet you, and all the best."
Yeah. Small, but I suppose the cup final is small. It also shows how small even Irish football is when you kind of get things like that happen. So for sure, he was what a player he was in his day. Like even the 20th anniversary of Cork City winning the league this year, like around 2004 in the early he really kind of was one of those players who kind of lit up Turner's Cross, and he was very, very, very good player, and he was there at Cork City when they won the league in 2005.
Any moment from your end, John, that you want to highlight?
I suppose, like, obviously, the one moment, apart maybe from the obvious kind of one, obviously, like Rovers winning the double and stuff. One thing that definitely for me stuff was the game, the FAI Cup game, the Kerry and Sligo Rovers. So Kerry pulling off what a remarkable comeback to come back and win the game, and just it looked like they were dead and buried when they were 3-0 down. And then I think even the FAI Cup, or was the FAI Twitter account even at the time as well, had something like, Owen Elding booked. Looks like he's going to book their place into the quarterfinals, or into the next round of the cup. And then look, Kerry did, and it was just electrifying. I know such a landmark moment for Kerry at such an early stage of their kind of time in League of Ireland football. You know, it was a real exhilarating, just one of the best comebacks, you would say, in the last couple of years. And you know, it's an exciting time, and obviously a fairly new team in the league as well. It'll be, you know, it's an exciting, you know, it'll be a moment, and it's a credit, I suppose, to Colin Healy, what he, you know, to have that the character that they had in that side to come back to win 4-3. And so it'd be exciting to see what Kerry do now in the next couple of years as well, because you feel like with someone like a coach of Colin Healy's caliber there as well, that they could kick on in the next couple of years, and who knows, maybe in the next number of years they could end up getting promoted into the Premier Division. He'll set standards down there as Cork City supporters will know for sure, and like it'll be exciting to see how he gets on over the next couple of seasons.
Okay, so let's talk about now the Ireland games with Portugal and Hungary, and I'm going to be totally transparent. Even though I'm Portuguese myself, I want Ireland to win, and I'm not being cute. You know that I speak my mind. I'm not one of those guys who are just politically correct and anything like that. So I want Ireland to win, because Portugal will qualify anyway, and I know a point or even 3 points will make huge difference for Ireland. So come on, boys in green. Karl, in your estimation, where is Ireland more realistic to get a good result? Is it home tonight against Portugal or away in Budapest?
I think it's very unlikely that we don't get a good result in either game. But to answer your question, probably at home tonight. We have a tendency of doing well against the bigger international nations at home. Even a draw tonight would be a massive result. The last time Portugal came to Dublin, we drew 0-0 in a fairly non-event game. It was kind of a celebration of Ronaldo coming to Dublin, and this is probably what it's going to be like tonight again. Which I don't really have much of an issue with. He's one of the best players of all time, so it's great to see him playing in the Aviva one last time. But yeah, look, I think the campaign was over after the loss to Armenia away. You can't lose to the lowest ranked team in your group. You just can't. But hopefully we can get something tonight, but I won't be holding my breath.
John, tactically speaking, how should Ireland approach these games? Do you think it's more about being pragmatic and tight, or they should go for it given the stakes?
Like I don't know. I'm just thinking there, even for sure. Let's look at the result. I think Hungary have just beat. I think they've beaten Armenia in the last couple of minutes. So like, I think essentially, what it means is that Ireland must, to have anything to play for go against Hungary, that they have to get at least a draw tonight against Portugal, or else their World Cup qualification hopes will be over before, so that they'll be going over to Hungary with nothing to play for if they don't get a draw tonight. I think, you know, with Heimer, I think there's only one way that I think that they, in terms of the private, like, will they take risks? I think, especially knowing that they probably need to get I kind of feel that it could be a fairly similar-ish kind of game, just in terms of the way he kind of sets the teams up, like to the Portugal game away, that he'll be just trying to make them, like, in terms of pragmatic and just making them hard to beat. And then hopefully, maybe if he can get an opportunity, or maybe from a set piece, or maybe on the counter, hopefully get them and capitalize on that. But like I can't see Heimer, from what I've seen with Ireland, he doesn't strike as someone who's going to kind of overly gamble too much, if you know what I mean. But like it's going to be interesting just how, like, you know, is it a case like will they settle for a draw and then just kind of go for broke against Hungary, or like how that'll play out now? It'll be interesting, but you know, it'll be a big ask either way for sure. Even tonight as well. Like obviously all the spotlight is on Ronaldo for sure, but like if you look at the like those supporting cast by like Trincao, Silva, Neto, Bruno Fernandes, Neves, there's not a bad supporting cast behind them either, a Portuguese player. So like you kind of feel like they will be kind of up under the cosh a good bit tonight now. So it'll be interesting to see how they hold up and soak the pressure that it kind of feels inevitable is going to be coming their way, and Portuguese attacks after attacks.
And I was just checking the result. It seems that Hungary beat Armenia 1-0, which are not the best news for Ireland. So Ireland, I think Ireland needs to win. A draw probably wouldn't be enough because then they would have to win Budapest. I'd say it would be better if they manage to get to 3 points. And I'm going to be crucified next time I'm in Portugal if they watch this podcast. But I don't mind. I'm maybe with Ireland tonight, as most of the time. So best of luck for the Irish team. Hope the two teams will meet in America next year and they can enjoy themselves in the States. So that's the end. That's the end. That's the end of the season. That's the end of this podcast. It's a bit weird to put an end, but that's how things are. But it's just a pause. Let's put it like that. It's a pause. The action will come back in February. So we just need to take a rest and there will be more excitement starting in 3 months. Like time flies. So Karl, John, thank you very much for participating in this podcast, not only tonight, but other occasions you are part of it. It's always a pleasure to have you here. Best of luck with the frames, Karl. I think you're going to be very busy during the Christmas time, but for good reason. So best of luck with that.
Thank you so much, Victor. Thanks for having us on.
John, best of luck with your writing, your journalist pieces in the Echo and other parts of the journalism sphere.
Thanks, Vitor. I really appreciate it, and then thank you for having me on again.
So, guys, there'll be a pause, but you can still subscribe because we'll be back next February. And if you want to share with someone who may benefit from watching this, or it's very much into League of Ireland insights from the fans, I'll be great if you can share. And don't hesitate to give a thumbs up because that helps this content to be distributed. And let's all support Ireland and hope Ireland will make us happy. Have a good evening, guys. Take care.
See you.